Hey everybody, I'm going to do the second quadrant, and I had to get a chair because sitting the way I did, I got MS and it doesn't work real well, so I'm doing it this way, but everything's still right here, and I'm still going to show the cards and everything, and I'm just putting them off to the side here on the table that I've got after we break them. So let's do the second quadrant. Hopefully we'll get an autograph out of this one. I think it's worked better anyway, truthfully. Eddie Collins, First Class Diamond Thief, 1925. That's nice. Andy High, St. Louis Cardinals, 1928. Marty Marion, St. Louis Cardinals, 1940. Frank O'Rourke, St. Louis Cardinals, shortstop, 1930. The Beast, Philadelphia Athletics, 1927. Johnny Kadap, 2 hits per inning twice in 1 game, 1928. George Gibson, Pittsburgh Pirates, 1912. Jimmy Welsh, New York Giants, 1928. Billy Evans, American League umpire, 1927. Mike Donlin, Pittsburgh Pirates, 1912. Dizzy Dean, he had a hard time beating the Cubs, 1932. Pitt Purdy from Cincinnati Reds, 1928. No, I saw that card and the way it looked like it was an auto. Johnny Allen, New York Yankees, 1932. Bobby Burke, Red Sox versus Senators, 8/8/31. Jeff Testro, Giants versus Phillies, 9/6/12. Yeah. Pack number 2, quadrant number 2. Got these wrappers. And we finally got one. There's the one that everybody wants. Babe Ruth. It's in her great stories. Babe Ruth, a big overgrown green pea, 1924. And that would definitely be going into a top loader for Brandon. So we did get one. Ray Blades, St. Louis Cardinals, 1923. Mort Cooper, St. Louis Cardinals, 1939. Al Spohr, New York Giants, catcher, 1928. One thing about it, I can say that they didn't just load it down with the popular players, you know, because, I mean, that's the first Babe Ruth card we've hit so far, so it seemed to really pretty much take a picture of everybody. Al Smith, Cleveland Indians, 1940. I doubt you're even interested in the back. It's not like you can actually read them. But the Old Professor, Boston Braves, 1938. I'm going to turn it around because there is a story on the back so that if y'all want to pause it, you can read it. Lefty Gomez, New York Yankees, 1934. Chick Fullis, New York Giants, 1929. Walter Hoke, New York Giants, 1917. Tommy Conley, American League umpire, 1912. Wally Shing, St. Louis Browns, 1927. Wally Gilbert, Cincinnati Reds, 1932. Hank Johnson, Cincinnati Reds, 1939. I know that Brandon got a lot of Cincinnati Reds cards in the first quadrant he bought. Carl Hubrill, Pirates versus Giants, 5/8/29. And finally, George Mullen, Browns versus Tigers, 7/4/2012. Well, 1912. You get that hard to think about, but no. So we hit a Babe Ruth in that pack. All right, so we got so far. Brandon's already found the Babe Ruth and the Ty Cobb. So the only thing you could really need to find, we really need to find now for him would be probably the Cy Young. Now, this is a good one to start out with. Jim Thorpe, Cincinnati Reds, 1917. And of course we want the auto of any player. Jim Bottomley, St. Louis Cardinals, 1923. Bill Beckman, St. Louis Cardinals, 1942. Ken Ash, 1 pitch, 3 outs, and a victory, 1929. That'd be a fun play to watch. 1 pitch, 3 outs, and win the game. Yeah, that'd be pretty cool. Tommy Thomas, Chicago White Sox, 1928. The Tabasco Kid, Washington Senators, 1911. Monrusi, New York Giants, 1922. Roxy Lawson, Detroit Tigers, 1935. Walter Hoke, New York Giants, 1917. Tommy Conley, American League umpire. Y'all saw that one in the last one. So if you watched the first video, that's the reason I'm going ahead and repeating them until I start seeing a duplicate from this video, in case people didn't watch the first one. Lefty O'Doul, Philadelphia Phillies, 1930. And there's another. Wow. It's another Ty Cobb, but it's different than the Ty Cobb that he got before. This is one of those great stories ones. Oh, I guess that's what it was on the other one too. It seems like the big stars have that great stories. So I guess it's like a subset about them or something. But yeah, and this one's not. This one looks like an actual baseball card too. Instead of just the story on the back, you can see that on the back it's written more like a. It even has the Major League Baseball symbol and stuff on it, which I don't know if these do. Oh yeah, I guess they do. But neat cards. So I'll put that in the top loader for you. Be careful with that. Okay, we got Benny Frey, Cincinnati Reds, 1934. The no-hitter Ted Lyons, White Sox versus the Red Sox, 8/21/26. It's weird, these cards have more like baseball card information, normal baseball card information looking stuff on them than it seemed like the first Quadrant did. Ed Walsh, Red Sox versus the White Sox, 8/27/11. Almost every card in that pack was made that way. But I haven't seen, I mean, y'all saw what the other ones looked like. It was basically just a story on the back about the player that didn't really say much about, looked like regular baseball cards. But these look like more like regular baseball cards. Okay. Yeah. Detroit Tigers. Nicknames. 1910. So apparently these do have subsets in them. Spikes, Top Orchard, St. Louis Cardinals, 1928. Rogers Hornsby, St. Louis Cardinals, 1922. Joe Cronin, accustomed to being the first, 1926. Pete Scott, Pittsburgh Pirates, 1928. Grover Alexander, Philadelphia Phillies, 1916. It says Triple Crown winner up there in the top. I don't know what that means. I know what Triple Crown winner means in horse racing, but I don't know what it means in baseball. Lou Finney, Boston Red Sox, 1939. Art Fletcher, New York Giants, 1917. 75 years ago highlights. Some of these have like little subset, like stuff up in the corner, and some of them, I don't think hardly any of them did in the first Quadrant I ever looked at. And then some of them just has like when they were put in the Hall of Fame and that kind of stuff, which I'm not reading that part. Waite Hoyt, New York Yankees, 1929. Well, let me get to the, y'all can read it if you want to. It's on the front, in the right hand corner. Wis Ferrell, Washington Senators, 1937. Jack Wilson, He really hit 57 home runs that year, 1924. That's strange. You'd think if he hit that many home runs, we'd be hearing more about him than we do about Babe Ruth. But kind of weird how that stuff works. Ernie Wick, St. Louis Cardinals, 1926. Frankie Hayes, Philadelphia Athletics, 1934. Jesse Haynes, Braves versus Cardinals, 7-7-24. And Smokey Joe Wood, Browns versus the Red Sox, 7-29-11. I feel like Jab's throwing all the wrappers off to the side. Al Simmons, the longest bat that law to allow, 1927. Heine Muller, St. Louis Cardinals, 1925. Bob O'Farrell, St. Louis Cardinals, 1933. Connie Mack, like father, like son. It says trivia up on the top, 1929. Vic Sorelli, 1928. Let's scoot this up a little bit. So I can just drop it on the table instead of having to reach over there, because I'm afraid I want to like throw it off the edge or something. Three Finger Brown, Chicago Cubs, 1916. Lefty Grove, Philadelphia Athletics, 1928. Chad Kimsey, St. Louis Cardinals, 1930. Buck Herzog, New York Giants, 1917. Bobby Durr, Washington Red Sox, 1937. Hal Newhouser, Detroit Tigers, 1940. Greasy Neal, Cincinnati Reds, 1916. Clyde Shown, St. Louis Cardinals, 1938. Howard Imke, Red Sox versus Athletics, 1909-7-23. And Chief Bender, Indians versus Athletics, 5/12/1910. We got, looks like 4 packs left. I think I'm doing okay, you know. Yeah, I'm at 19 minutes, I think. All right. Got Joe Jackson, Cleveland Indians, 1913. Of course, that becomes Shoeless Joe Jackson, so he famously become known as. Enos Slaughter, St. Louis Cardinals, 1939. Max Lanier, St. Louis Cardinals, 1940. Dave Bancroft, A True Winner, 1926. Red Ruff duplicate, even from this video. Buckafoot Al, Detroit Tigers, 1936. Yeah, it's under nicknames. Kind of figured that one. Hugh Duffy, Boston Red Sox, 1921. I think this is actually working better anyway. Sit in the chair. Joe Glenn, New York Yankees, 1935. Paul Perrette, New York Giants, 1937. Actually, I think that is 1917. Yeah, 1917. Sorry, looked at it wrong. Earl Combs, New York Yankees, 1937. That one actually is 1937. Tris Speaker, That Terrific Instinct, 1926. Chuck Drezzy, Cincinnati Reds, 1934. T. Carrollton, Chicago Cubs, 1936. Sad Sam Jones, Yankees vs. Athletics, 5/4/23. Then Red Ames, Dodgers vs. Giants, 4/15/09. I am uploading these one at a time before I put the next one out. The reason being is because I've got to make sure that it goes through right because of the timing. But all four of them should be done today at some point. Well, will be done today at some point. Herb Pennick, that's a duplicate. Terry Moore, St. Louis Cardinals, 1935. Bill Sherrill, St. Louis Cardinals, 1929. Earl Averill, homered in first at bat on opening day, 1933. That's one of the trivia ones. Fred Hoffman, St. Louis Browns, 1939. Yeah, so they definitely had the Cardinals and the Browns at the same time. Yeah, at least for a couple of years. The Mechanical Man, Detroit Tigers, 1934. Chuck Klein, Philadelphia Phillies, 1933. Buck Krause, Chicago White Sox, 1930. Sam Leslie, New York Giants, 1936. Babe Adams, not Babe Ruth, Pittsburgh Pirates, 1916. Babe must have been a more popular name back then than it was today. Billy Herman, Professionalism, 1932. Frank Grube, Chicago White Sox, 1932. Dazzy Vance, St. Louis Cardinals, 1934. Jesse Barnes, Phillies versus Giants, 5/7/22. And Nap Rucker, Braves versus Dodgers, 9/5/08. 2 backs. King Laurel Curl, New York Giants, 1928. Lon Warnke, St. Louis Cardinals, 1939. Eddie Dyer, St. Louis Cardinals, 1925. A lot of St. Louis Cardinals right in a row. Freddie Lindstrom, good was the Senators. God was with the Senators, 1924. What happens when you don't have glasses on? Johnny Markham, Boston Red Sox, 1936. Heine Zimmerman, Chicago Cubs, 1912. Bump Hadley, St. Louis Browns, 1933. Bobby Veach, Detroit Tigers, 1917. Clark Griffith, Washington Senators, 1914. Ken Williams, Boston Red Sox, 1928. Jimmy Ivy Andrews, St. Louis Browns, 1936. Charlie Berry, Philadelphia Athletics, 1934. George Mogridge, Washington Senators, 1925. Charles Robinson, White Sox versus Tigers, 4/30/22. Hooks Wiltz, Phillies versus Giants, 7/4/08. This is the last pack, and I've got, it's 29 minutes. It's going to go over about as much as the last one did, and then we'll let the other one right through, so we should be okay. Greg Stevenson, 1926 for Chicago Cubs. Bill Holman, St. Louis Cardinals, 1925. Kent Greenfield, Boston Braves, 1926. George Sisler, nearest thing to a perfect player, 1929. Joe Niwich, Boston Braves, 1924. Black Mike, Detroit Tigers, 1935, under nicknames. Kind of obvious. There it is. There's one of the ones we've been missing for the legends. Lou Gehrig, New York Yankees, 1927. So, put that for the top loader. Basically, he got them all, except for maybe Ty Cobb. Jack Smith, Boston Braves, 1928. Brandon's done really well in getting, I think that's the 5 biggest ones, and he got 4 of them, 2 of Ty Cobb. Pants Roland, that's American League umpire. Nobody cares. Eddie Plank, St. Louis Browns, 1916. Phil Tody, Boston Red Sox, 1934. Walt French, Philadelphia Phillies, 1925. Mal Eason, National League umpire, nobody cares. Walter Johnson, Senators versus Red Sox, 71-20. And the last card in his second quadrant is Christy Matheson, Giants versus Cubs, 6-13-05, under no hitters. Thanks, Brandon, for buying the first 2 quadrants, and I will be back with Thrill Seekers third quadrant in just a bit. Thanks.